Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Happy Saturday. Hope you guys are doing well. Happy new moon in Virgo. It's been a busy day. I don't know about you guys, but it's been quite busy for me. Stoked to be back. We're going to be doing live readings on the channel. So those of you guys who are new to my channel, welcome. I'm a Western astrologer. I factor in astrology with tarot and also like clairvoyant stuff. And I'm really excited because today we are doing live astrology readings. Every Saturday we're here live on the channel at 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern. Next week will be tarot, but this time we're doing live astrology readings. Those of you guys who are new to my channel, I'm going to explain how this works. There's a QR code right over here. All readings are by donation. It's a minimum donation of $40 for one question. And we need to have a whole set of information in order to pull your chart. So it's very important that in the memo, when you make a donation, please include your time, date, and city, state of location. We need to know the AM or the PM and also the country. Hopefully you guys can put that in there. As always, big thank you to all of the subscribers, to the members. Just want to give you guys a shout out. Thank you guys for joining, supporting the channel, making it possible for me to do what I'm doing. By joining memberships and joining level 3, you're going to get one reading from me once a month during the lives, and we're going to take the level 3 subscribers first. So I know we got a couple people here. What's up, Carla? Let me know if you want to make a donation for a reading. Hey, Stephanie, I saw that you joined. Send me that info, please, and your question. We have got, we'll do questions for 2 charts, $65 for Synastry. We need to know the information for both parties, and we will be taking readings in the order that they are received. We've got 5 spots remaining right now. We're going to take, we usually tap out around 10 people. So sometimes if we have more, if we get through the readings faster, we can do more. We can have a standby list. But once we hit 10 people, we generally kind of go from there because it can take a little bit of time to go through the readings. And so far, let me see who I've got in the queue. So we'll take Stephanie first. Are there any other level 3 subscribers that would like to get their reading? Let me know. Once I get that information from you, Steph, I can plug that in and we'll get you in just a second. To those of you guys who went ahead and joined early to be able to get in for your question, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. It makes it so much easier because then I have all of your guys' charts ready to go. How are you guys doing with that new moon in Virgo? Did you guys do something productive today? Did you clean something? You set some new intentions? It's a little grumpy, the square to Mars, but it's going to be, I think, a pretty interesting next month ahead because it's getting everybody moving and shaking. Thank you, Steph. I'll get your info in here. Let's see, 7393. And that was at 2:22 p.m. I think that was Montclair, California. Yep. So when you guys make your donation to get your spot for the reading, please do make sure that you put your question and all the information in the memo. That's really important. Along with the time and the date, please, if you can. All right. So we'll start with Stephanie, and then in the queue so far, it looks like we have got Niall, Rachel, Christopher, Kurt, and Madison. So you guys are probably here. I know sometimes people put in their question and they come back. So if you guys can't stay all the way through, we can definitely have this in the playback. It's available. Please give us a thumbs up, and also sharing is caring. If you want to share the stream with other people who might want a reading, I would appreciate it. So we'll go ahead and get started with Stephanie C. She says, my father is hiding a severe illness and I will most likely be taking care of him. When do you see me having to take care of him? He hasn't told me yet. It seems like it's bad heart and kidneys. Can I get his date of birth, please? That would be helpful. Hello, Emma. All right, Steph, I'm sorry to hear that you're dealing with this. That's very difficult. I think I remember talking to you about the Saturn square Pluto aspect. So people born in '93 who have that Saturn square to Pluto between Saturn in Aquarius and Pluto in Scorpio. Really difficult, challenging transit. It does deal with sometimes having to take care of elders, superiors, life or death situations. Saturn in the fourth is sometimes going back home, living with a parent, taking care of a parent. And that square to Pluto in Scorpio does represent the tension or the pressure, especially in your first house, right, of having to go through the motions of not only making changes in terms of who you are. I practice Placidus, not whole sign. So even though Pluto belongs to your second, I know you've been with some back and forth financial stuff, but going back home now that Saturn is retrograding, it makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to plug in his info here, 9/14/69. I'm going to put his placements on the outer wheel. All right. Just because I'm curious what he's got going on. Okay, cool. So we don't know his time. We're just going off of his outer planet. So he's got Sun in Virgo, Sun conjunct South Node. So he's got Neptune that is currently in opposition to his natal Sun, Pluto. Does he have issues with like diabetes? Is there anything like that? Blood sugar issues? I know kidneys. I know you said that, but right now with Neptune in opposition to his Sun, that can be his overall vitality. Neptune can be strange and mysterious like illnesses. Sometimes it can deal with just feeling more lethargic. We'd have to really look at the chart altogether. But I think with Neptune in opposition to his Sun and his Pluto, definitely heart issues. Sometimes we see diabetes, dealing with anything in relation to Virgo or sixth house stuff. That can be an indication as well. I will tell you, just knowing that he is going to be having, you know, squares happening with his mutable placements, just being a Virgo, you know, he's going to be having squares between his fourth house to his Sun Mars, and we're going to have Mars that's going retrograde in his 10th house to his Sun. So basically it's like he most likely will not be working, or there will be a period of him having to scale back from working with Mars opposed to Mars square his placements in Virgo. Okay, so he is dealing with blood sugar issues, diabetes. Okay, so you're asking me specifically, when do I see you having to go and take care of him? Well, Saturn going retrograde in your fourth house could literally be like having to go home taking care of an elderly parent. I would say that just down the line, right, just thinking about like Pluto going into Aquarius in this next year, coming into conjunction with the IC in your chart, makes me kind of feel like part of what may manifest if he does go through a period of time of not working is feeling the stress financially and also not being able to like take care of everything. And ultimately, I think with Pluto going into right on your IC, your fourth house cusp, spring of next year could bring some more challenging situations in regards to like finances and whether or not he's working and if he needs support. It could be all the way up until your actual Saturn return, as weird as that sounds. So I'm going to go forward now so we can make it current. So even though Saturn is in your fourth house, Saturn is not going to come into conjunction with your natal Saturn until next spring-ish. And I'm wondering if it's going to be actually during the Mercury retrograde. Okay, so in January, Mercury is going to go retrograde in Capricorn, right over your moon, in opposition to your Sun, which can be symbolic of being like, okay, am I going to be, you know, moving? Like, do I have to go and actually be at home with a parent, if there's anything like that? Sorry, now I'm moving this around a little bit. Where is this retrograde? Okay, it's right here. In early January, because third house is movement, this can also be talking about you having to go and like talking to a sibling or talking to a relative or a family member about making a home and like preparation to actually go and be home right before Saturn comes into conjunction with your natal Saturn. Now, you could do it sooner, okay? I'm not telling you that you have to, but I have a feeling that it's probably going to be right around this period. You're here now with him. He just moved. Okay. So, yeah, probably right around that period is kind of what it's like looking like, right when Saturn comes out of the square with Pluto, and it's looking like it's going to be probably in the new year, Mercury retrograde over your moon, and your moon's intercepted. So it's a lot of like you getting other things set up work-wise and things like that. So that way it can better facilitate you being able to be mobile. And then Saturn is going to come into conjunction with Venus and your natal Saturn. And that's going to be important because it's your chart ruler. So I'm looking at like the end of January 2023. Right when Mercury has stationed, it's going to be conjunct your moon. You have more clarity about what it is that you need to do, where you need to be. And then Saturn comes into conjunction with your natal Saturn. I guess the silver lining in all of this is, to be really honest with you, very rarely have I seen a Saturn transit in the 4th manifest as not having to return home to the place where you were born, moving back home, taking care of an elderly parent, and you have Saturn at 29. So that is a Leo degree. So I would say like probably in preparation for you personally to, you know, really start making that segue at the end of January going into the beginning of February. Something else I would say is that he is also going to have Saturn going into Pisces. And even though it's not going to be in an opposition to his sun or his natal Pluto, it is so important that he is really paying attention to his health, because as Saturn goes into his 7th house or 7th to his sun, it is going to be about him needing more support, feeling the lack of support from partners. And then as Saturn goes fuller into Pisces 2023 to 2025, it'll oppose his sun Pluto. Like, he needs to have good doctors. He needs to be really paying attention to his feet. I know that sounds weird, but there can be issues with his feet with Saturn in opposition to his sun Pluto. So if he's not staying on top of his dietary regimen, if he's not making sure that he's like really checking his blood sugar, stuff like that, he can have lots of issues, which can actually bring mobility issues because of the square to Mars. So I would say, from what I can see, it's looking like the end of this year, you're going to start preparing to really make the segue end of January going into February. Obviously, if you have his time in the future, if you want me to take a look at his chart, I'm happy to do that. There's some more positive things too. Like, you've got Pluto coming into a trine with your Venus. So I do see it being something where you're really changing and transforming and going deeper into the relationship with family. There's a lot of love there. There's a lot of support. And in the spring, when we have an eclipse, believe it or not, the eclipses are going to start in Aries next year. We're going to have an eclipse at 29 degrees of Aries, right here around the 19th. That one's a doozy because it's going to square Pluto in the most southern part of your chart, which is literally saying having to go and really focus on others, North Node in your 7th, and the descendant is going to be in a square to your IC. So it's looking like, because things are really changing for relationships with you, relationships with family, stuff like that, there is like an emphasis of like needing to be around right around the time of those eclipses. So I'd say plan for the end of January. But you might want to get the show on the road and start, you know, planning the actual move and knowing when you're going to be getting everything together in Capricorn season of 2022. Okay. If you ever want to come back, you want to have questions, you want me to take a look at his chart, I'm always happy to do that. Obviously, you know, sending lots of love and lots of good vibes your way for your dad, and just make sure that he's really staying on top of his health, because in 2 years' time, when that Saturn transit opposes his sun Pluto, there could be real serious issues with his heart. I'm not going to speculate because I'm not a doctor, and we don't have his chart, but that could be like needing some kind of surgical procedure on his heart. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Steph. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's switch over to Niall's. You are very welcome. All right, so we've got Niall's here. Okay, Niall, 4/19/95, 11:14 a.m. in Brooklyn. Was a wild few months, but a lot of what you said in my last meeting has manifested. All right, I'm back in my hometown after traveling to Tucson, Denver, and LA. And I feel like I'll be traveling later this year, but it feels like big decisions are going to have to be made mid-September through the eclipses. During the fixed June squares, I was in LA and got in a small accident and had to pay $5,000 on a credit card and living expenses. So I'm back home in New York City since August. Luckily, this month has offered me some short-term teaching job. Did an interview for another company. I'm excited to be hearing back about this dream career opportunity in the music industry. It's like the debt made me refocus on my money career search. I'm optimistic about this dream, but based on my chart, what do you see the next few months, and how can I best prepare for post-eclipse season? All right. A couple things, you know, I was looking at your chart when I was kind of like plugging it in, getting an idea of kind of what's going on. Number one is, I know you're asking about post-eclipse season, but eclipses, we start feeling a couple weeks prior. So once you're in that mid-October-ish period, you're already feeling the eclipses, and it's probably going to be felt all the way to the 3rd week of November. For now, you've got a Mercury retrograde that's getting ready to set up, and it's going to be hanging out, going in and out of your 4th house. So to me, it seems like the next month and a half is a lot of figuring out the living situation. Now, if you're like, I'm home, I'm good, I'm just planning where I'm going, this is temporary, totally fine. Just pay attention, because Mercury is the Lord of your 12th house, so it can represent like getting grounded, getting secure, getting stable. And Mercury will go retrograde over the most southern part of your chart through your IC. So that makes me feel like you're reevaluating where it is that you want to live, where you're going. Look for some positive insight, something that comes to you in a dream, some kind of like intuitive hit about where you're going next, right around the 22nd of September, when the Sun-Mercury Cazimi comes together at the most southern part of your chart. Now, shortly after that, then we're going to see Mercury go retrograde and come into conjunction with Venus. And this can be a good indication of getting some good news about traveling, getting some good news possibly even from a friend, some kind of support, joining a group, an association, something like that, to kind of further your professional goals. This will be happening right around the 24th. Now, if this were me, I would say, you know, probably waiting until Mercury goes direct. It'll go direct right here, right around the 2nd of October. And it'll be in Virgo, so it's very strong. It's going to form another trine actually to Pluto in your 7th, which makes me feel like there can be lots of negotiations going on for more work. 7th house, Pluto is powerful clients, people who you can collaborate with, things like that. All the while, you've got Jupiter retrograding over your midheaven. So really what it's saying is it's showing you all the insight of what the future can hold in terms of your career. Right now, it's a little bit of like, okay, if you are going to plan some short distance trips, just know they're going to kind of go a lot more smoothly if you're doing it after the retrograde, because it is in your 3rd house. So it's things like, can I get there, you know, by car? Do I have the funds to be able to go places? Am I going to have to rearrange travel? At least wait till Mercury stations. And when Mercury comes into a trine with Pluto, it looks like you would consider going to other areas or even moving around if there was like a job opportunity that would pop up in early October. Now, I'm really liking when Mercury's direct on this, 4th, 5th, and 6th of October. It's trining Pluto, but then we're going to see something cool. For the 3rd time, Mercury is going to come into an opposition with Jupiter. And this is going to possibly bring some good career news, which is going to give you some insight as to like where it is that you could be living. If you find a job in another place and you're able to go there and take the job and move, it could be positive. If it ends up being that you find a job close to home and you're like, actually, I think I'm going to stay a little bit longer before I really decide to pack up and leave, that's totally fine too. And that's happening the first half of October. Now, something else that's kind of cool is there's going to be a new Venus star point. This is when Venus and the Sun are going to conjunct, and Venus is going to pull ahead of the Sun. And that's going to be happening at 29 degrees. It's interesting because it's right in opposition to your Sun. This will be right around the 22nd of October. This star point is just like a Venus Cazimi with the Sun. It can be good news in regards to relationships and partnerships, but in your case, it's in the 4th house. So it tells me that something's coming together in terms of your living situation, and it's in opposition to your Sun. So it might kind of feel like right when you're getting settled, everything's good. You're like, you know what? I found a good job. I'm happy here right now. I'm planning further in the new year for work. I've got a job and I've got a comfortable home space at the moment. So it makes me feel like you'll take it, especially because it's in trine to Saturn, and it's also going to be in a trine to Mars and Gemini. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to scale back on your plans. Keep in mind, like this whole next year, you're going to have Jupiter in your 10th house of career, expanding your career options. And around the 3rd week of April, you're going to have an eclipse on your Sun. That'll be a new moon solar eclipse. Personally, I feel like this is about strategy and planning. This is like, what can I do for now? How can I start saving more money? How can I start focusing on bringing more in? Because Saturn is in your 8th house of other people's resources in opposition to your Mars. So it's kind of like buckling down, doing what you need to do to save money, to work. You may feel like it's a little bit harder to bring in resources from other people, which is why I'm not going to send you on a wild goose chase and say, yeah, move across the country and take a job. No, I think it's smarter to pay off your debt with Saturn in opposition to your Mars. Mars in the second house likes to spend. So what you're feeling is like, oh, I got in an accident. Mars, I got to pay it off. I put something on a credit card. I got to pay it off. And it's actually really positive for you because it's going to help you kind of get more financially sound. I think before there's some bigger gigs that are going to pop up when Jupiter comes back into your 10th house. Now, when Jupiter returns back to your 10th house, this will be kind of in the new year. That's what I want you to watch for. Okay, so this will be right around like the mid-January period. And Jupiter returns, it hits 3 degrees where it's gaining strength. We're going to see also Pluto is coming into contact with your natal Uranus, so you may have an opportunity to suddenly make more money. And you're coming into Jupiter and Venus on your sun, and then you're coming into eclipses. Too long, didn't understand. Buckle down, pay stuff off, stay close to home. Don't do anything too crazy. If you're going to plan trips, plan short trips and go places and visit. Try to do either, side jobs or kind of job to job, whatever you can swing until closer around your birthday. When you have an eclipse on your birthday with Jupiter in conjunction to your sun, and it will be a solar eclipse, and the North Node moves into your 4th house, you have your reverse nodal return. April is the time where everything just cracks wide open. I can't think of like a better transit. Like North Node in the 10th is like, yeah, I want to be successful. I'm focusing on my career. Jupiter on the sun is like, you can't go wrong. Yeah, you'll be really overly optimistic, but Jupiter is going to bring you new opportunities. Jupiter rules your 6th house of work and travel. Jupiter also rules your 9th house of philosophy. So I feel like you could be working with people, traveling places. You could be working with people of all different cultures and different backgrounds, and it's gonna work. But that's the time that you really want to focus on. Okay, so that's when stuff's gonna stick a little bit more. Definitely get a solar return reading. I really recommend find an astrologer or somebody that you trust. And actually pay to have them talk to you about what's going to happen for the year ahead, because to have Jupiter, the North Node, and a solar eclipse all happening in your 10th house on top of your sun is like mind-boggling, because it's about your talent, right? And it's about money, because the sun rules your 2nd house. So suddenly something's going to appear and you're going to be like, that's the thing, and you're going to go towards that. It doesn't mean it's going to be super easy though, because all of this is going to be in a square to Pluto in your 7th. So likely you're, totally changing and transforming your public image. You're totally changing and transforming your relationships. Likely maybe you're taking on like a manager of sorts, or you're partnering with somebody, you're going into some business merger. So it does require some level of sacrifice to some extent with the nodes coming into a square with Pluto. But for a Cancer rising chart, whole sign, it's in your 8th. So likely you're partnering with somebody who's willing to invest money into something, or, you're putting up the work and they're kind of funding something and you're talking about growing it together, and that's the merger. But going back to what you said about the eclipses briefly here, we are going to have an eclipse because they come in pairs. So there's going to be one that's going to be around the end of October. And that's going to be this one. That's going to be at 2 degrees of Scorpio, very close to your North Node. And it is about creativity, but it's about creating from home, doing some kind of work from home, because it's in your 4th house. Watch for changes revolving around your living situation. I wouldn't advise you doing anything crazy like moving on an eclipse. You want to leave a couple days on each side of the eclipse to see what shakes out. If you're hoping to find more stable living stuff, I would say probably be planning that after the October 25th eclipse. Then you're going to have another eclipse that's going to be in in Taurus. And this is going to be on the 8th of November. This is a really wild eclipse because it's conjunct Uranus, so it's very destabilizing. And it's also going to be in a square to Saturn. So that to me looks like it's more, how am I working with other people? Who do I know? Who am I collaborating with? Could be stuff going on with friends. Remember, you're a Cancer rising chart, so It's very important for you to be paying attention to all lunar eclipses. So if you start looking at the lunar eclipses just every 6 months, you should notice that it has quite an impact on you. Now, I like an exalted moon in Taurus, not wild about the conjunction to Uranus, but we can roll with the punches. But when we look at the oppositions taking place between Scorpio and the square to Saturn, I would advise you, like, don't rush into living with another person here. It makes me feel like you might try to live with somebody. You might find out that it's a little bit more than you could afford. There can also be a little bit back and forth with creative work, trying to make things work with another person or with a group of people you're trying to collaborate with, and issues over ownership or joint resources or getting paid. Just in general, right? This eclipse is going to be pretty wild for everybody. Like, a lot of people are just going to see certain situations just fall out. Or, you know, good things can come out of the blue, but this one's going to be a little rocky with Venus and Scorpio. So don't go moving in with somebody. Don't go moving in with a partner. I wouldn't advise you doing anything like that. Get grounded, get secure, save money, come up with a plan. So that way you can, you know, do some work to be able to kind of get everything ready so you can start making the bigger changes that you're going to be making in the spring of next year. Don't fear the retrogrades, guys, okay? Like, right now, I'd be more concerned about Uranus retrograde than I would be concerned about Mercury retrograde, because Mercury retrogrades happen. We have to work with the retrogrades to be able to go back and dig through things. I've been really loving the retrogrades this year because they all make aspects to Pluto. So it's helping us go deep and figure out, like, all the missing pieces. They've also made aspects to Saturn, so it's going to allow us to get more stable. So work with these retrogrades to kind of plan. And for you personally, to me, it's kind of like a lot of like, where could I live? Where do I know people? Where's work? And what are my plans next year? Because if you're doing this now during Virgo Libra season, it's going to kind of better support you 6 months from now when you're having that full moon, that eclipse, or the new moon solar eclipse that's going to be on your sun, okay? Hopefully that's helpful for you. Glad to hear that some of the things panned out and you're navigating these Saturn transits the best that you can in the midst of all this craziness. Hope that was helpful. All right, so we've got Rachel. Let's pull Rachel's info up. All right, so Rachel says, I'm a painter who plans on releasing limited edition Halloween postcards I designed on my merch website to promote via social media, and I realize it's going to happen. It's going to have to be during Mercury retrograde shadow. Ideally, I'd like to release them online between September 15th and October 3rd. They'll be available until I sell out. I don't want to wait too long to release them. People need to receive postcards and then mail them to friends before the end of October. Let me know what dates work best. Thanks for your help. Let's take a look here. Okay, so sometime between September 15th and October 3rd. So she wants to release something. So we've got Jupiter going retrograde back into your 10th, so that works for you. So the 15th through October 3rd. Well, let's see. Sun opposed Neptune. If it's art that you're selling, let's do something like after the new moon in Libra, when Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus. Let's get Venus in Libra, and let's do something like Venus in opposition to Jupiter, and let's put the moon in a trine, maybe here, to the Sun Venus, Mars on the ascendant, Saturn moon, trine Mars, Mercury opposed Neptune, but Mercury has stationed. Mercury's coming into a trine with Pluto. I'm kind of liking October 4th. Thanks, Emma. I'll add you to my list. Kind of liking October 4th. What day is that? That is a Tuesday. The reason why I like that is because we've got Mercury coming into a trine with Pluto. It's great for postcards. It's no longer going to be retrograde by then. It will have station, so it's really strong. And then you're going to have the moon going into a conjunction with Saturn. So it's going to be good for like promotions and sales. And it's into a trine with your natal Mars. And you've got the sun and Venus conjunct. And they're still within range of an opposition of Jupiter. Something else you could do is, although I like that, I'll tell everybody, I really like the astrology of mid-October. Mid-October is great, but I get that you got to get stuff out. I wouldn't do that on a full moon with Venus in opposition to Chiron. No, I would do October 4th, personally. And we can even look at it in terms of, where is the ascendant? Something like, I'm assuming, I think you're in LA, so you're on PM, if I remember correctly. I like around like 4:30 p.m. because you're going to have Jupiter on the ascendant, Sun, Venus on the descendant, and it's going to be in a trine to Mars in your third. So right around 4:30 p.m. Pacific time on October 4th for those postcards. And I know that you sent me a message, so I'll send you another message. But yeah, I know that you want to do it sooner. The only thing is, if you want to do it sooner and you want a day that's going to be from September 15th, I just feel like Mercury retrograde conjunct is not ideal. Mercury trine Pluto. It's not in opposition to Neptune. Venus trine Pluto. Venus square Mars. It is kind of like darker, kind of sexy things that you're doing. So if you need to do a sooner date, I'm looking at September 25th. So that looks like a Sunday, just after the new moon. So you definitely want to be doing it later in the day. So anytime after 4:30. But just know that Mercury is retrograde. So there can be issues with printing. You want to triple proof everything, make sure everything's good. Personally, if it were me, I would do it on the 4th. If you can afford an extra couple days. But I really want to see Mercury in a trine to Pluto, and I want to see it after the new moon. So you got September 25th later in the day after 4:30 p.m., or you can be doing this on October 4th, around 4:30 p.m. It was like 4:29 p.m., but within the minute, it's totally fine. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Rachel. You have any questions, send me a message. Thanks, Emma. I'll plug you in just a second. Thanks, Mystic Road. Let's see how many people we've got here. We got to add Emma. So we've got Emma, and then we've got Chris, Matt, Madison, Tonya, and Rachel. So have we hit that? Let's see. We had another one here. Where is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we can take one more person. So it's probably going to be about an hour, but we can take one more person if anybody wants to pop in. All right, so let me plug in your info, Emma, although I think maybe I have you. Let's see. Let me see if I have you. No, I gotta plug you in. March 1876. And That's 11:50 p.m. And that was Victoria, Australia. Hey Candace, I'm a bit late. Can I catch it? I'm traveling overseas in September. Would like to know what may come up during that time. When in September are you traveling? Thanks, Carla. I got you. And Rachel. Anybody else who pops in, we'll put you guys on standby. So we'll see if we have time for extra people. So you're traveling overseas in September. Well, just had a new moon in your 9th. Great for traveling. September 7th. And you got Venus going through your 9th. That's great as well. Sun square Neptune makes me feel like just make sure that you're checking your clocks, everything's good, that you're not missing anything, because you could be with that square overlooking some stuff. Might have some issues with like jet lag with Sun square Neptune, just adapting a little bit, but it's coming out of the square. Try to make some changes to your sleep schedule with the square 2 days prior. So starting around the 5th, depending on what time zone you're flying into, that's a great way to do that. Then you've got Venus going through your 9th. Sun is in a trine to Pluto, so that's looking really good. And Venus is also coming into a trine, and that is going to be with the North Node in Uranus. Mercury is going retrograde, so are you not working while you're traveling? What's the deal? Are you choosing to take time off? Do you work for yourself? I mean, me personally, I'm a fan. Like, I like doing that. Like, when Mercury is retrograde in my 2nd house or when it's retrograde in my 10th house, I usually won't work, or I'll rearrange my schedule, so that's fine. Just know that Mercury is going to be coming into a square with your Mars. So as Mercury turns retrograde, it will square your Mars at 0 degrees with the Cazimi. So where are you going to be on the 22nd? Or is that when you're planning on being back and getting back into the swing of things? That's a day that I would watch because it's at 0 degrees. Where's the moon? So it's coming into the new moon. So September 22nd with that Sun Mercury square to Mars makes me feel like a little jumbled, especially with these being at 0 degrees of cardinal signs. Maybe it's like feeling like you need to take charge of something. Just be careful with Sun square Mars. There can be, you know, issues with food, or there can be, you're back home on the 22nd. Okay, getting back into the swing of things. The 22nd, just make a note of that day with the Sun Mercury retrograde and a square to your Mars. It's like getting back into the schedule, what you're eating, if you're working out, anything like that. That seems like a bit of a jumbled day. But the days that you're actually gone, even in spite of the retrograde, it's fine. I would just say, you know, if you're traveling during a retrograde, double and triple check all of your lodging, look at all of the flights and all of that stuff, your itinerary. There can be some things that change. But it's not making like any oppositions to your planets. You are going to have Venus oppose Venus, and then you're going to have Venus in opposition to Mercury. So are you going somewhere where there's going to be some challenges in terms of like communication? Is there going to be a language barrier? If there is, I would say in advance, prior to the retrograde stuff starting, get an app on your phone with Mercury in Virgo and with Venus in Virgo that translates. That's going to make it easy. And make sure that you're getting like a map or use like Google Maps or something that's going to be like working for the country that you're going into. And because that's in opposition to Venus and Mercury in your 3rd house, I would also advise you to make sure that you look at everything in regards to your carrier settings, make sure that you're good to go. There isn't going to be any unexpected charges, or that you're going to be in a place where you can't use your phone. Don't rely on internet, because that looks like it could be a little disjumbled. And documents with Mercury and also Venus in opposition to your natal Venus Mercury. To me, it just seems like a little bit of like a translating issue or a document issue. So make sure you have everything ready to go prior. If you're going to be leaving on the 7th, I would say when the sun is in a trine to, well, you kind of already lost that. I was going to say when the sun's in a trine to your Jupiter. So let's do something like when the sun, let's see. So we're the 27th. Okay, so let's do something like Sun trine, Sun square Mars. Heading to, okay, I'll print everything. Yeah, just get everything ready in advance. That's what I would do. But with Mercury trine Mars, I would say it's on the, what day is this? The 2nd? No, it's not the best day. Let's do something like the 5th. So when the moon's in Capricorn in a trine to the sun, and the sun's coming into a trine with the transiting north node, that's a day that you want to make sure you have everything physically ready to go. But yeah, I mean, a Mercury retrograde that's technically happening in your 10th is just taking time off of work, and just expect that it's going to be a little disjointed getting back to work on the 22nd, but you'll be fine once Mercury comes back. Also, Mercury is going to be in opposition to your sun. Sun is the ruler of the 9th house. You are the sun. So do you have anybody at home that's taking care of plants, animals, anything in your apartment or anything like that? Is there somebody staying in your place? Venus, Mercury, all those planets that are going to be in opposition. It's not really going to kick in, but Mercury going retrograde in opposition to your sun is like, if you are having to tell people that you're out of the office, make sure everybody knows, because there might be people who are trying to reach you. Or if you're like, hey, I'm not working, it's like really taking that time to be fully invested in and present for your trip. But Mercury won't retrograde back into your 9th. So in the 10th, it's just more like what you're managing, what you're taking care of. And when that retrogrades in opposition to your sun, sometimes there can be a sense of like how you want things to go and how people do them. So, you know, you might not like the way that, you know, food is served, or you may not like the way that people are handling your bags or things like that. There can just be more issues with communication with other people. So make sure you have everything printed. Make sure you have anything that can help you with translation or currency exchange. That could be something else, because we are going to be seeing trines to the North Node and Uranus. So make sure that you understand that conversion rate as well. Okay? Safe travels. Hope it goes well. Make sure you label everything. Okay. Who else do we have here? So now we've got Christopher. All right, Christopher. We've got Queen of Wands. October 3rd, 74, 5:50 a.m. Jersey City. Okay. I live in Tucson. Whatever you stands out, please. You're welcome, Emma. Well, what stands out for me, other than holy mutable squares? Well, the Mercury retrograde is going to be hovering back and forth over your ascendant. I feel like just being ruled by Mercury in general, this is really important. But I'm curious if you want to make a mental note, whatever was happening August 20th, really up through now, just pay attention, because the Mercury retrograde in your ascendant is like, what's going on with my body? How am I communicating? How am I thinking? It can be like really hyper-stimulated when it's right on your ascendant. But now it's coming into conjunction with Venus, and it will also come into a conjunction with Pluto. So literally the Mercury retrograde is very, very personal for you. You're going to see it stationed at 8 degrees, so it's going to get really powerful, turns retrograde, and then Mercury will come back into a conjunction with your Pluto. To me, Venus, Pluto, my. There is like a getting connected with your body, with your sexuality, with your physical appearance, kind of getting in touch, especially in Libra. It's such a great placement. It's like, how do I feel sexy in my body? How can I feel more confident in my skin? Like, do I want to show a little bit more skin? Do I make some changes? Do I get something that's going to be like a little bit more provocative in terms of what I'm wearing? Very possible. And also, as it comes into conjunction with Venus in Libra, it's going to in conjunct your moon in Taurus. So it's a lot like, oh, do I want to show that, you know? the moon in Taurus in the 8th house can be a little bit more sensual, a little bit more conservative. So I'm liking the fact that it's enacting your, you know, natal kind of in conjunct between the moon and Venus and Pluto, which wants to show that, but the moon's like afraid. I'm going to make some wild recommendations here. I feel like you need to get in touch with your body. I feel like you need to kind of like romanticize this new look that you have, whether it's just, oh, you lost weight and you feel weird. Okay, so honestly, I think it's really wonderful to get in touch with that. With the oppositions to Jupiter, Jupiter being the ruler of your 4th, it's how you're feeling in your body and perhaps maybe getting more attention. Jupiter in the 7th is definitely going to draw a little bit more attention to you. I also want you to know, like, Jupiter's going to come into conjunction with your moon in this next year. It'll be spring of next year, but it's going to conjunct. Where you are going to be coming into contact and having intimate relationships and physical relationships with other people, but it starts with this retrograde on your ascendant. Pluto also is just how you communicate. So it might be that you're like communicating a little bit more provocatively. It could be that you're choosing to be more confident in how you communicate with other people. I like that the Mercury retrograde is also going to sextile Neptune in your North Node. So you might find that people are approaching you, like if you're out and about more. People might be sliding into your DMs and trying to kind of chat with you. I think like a Mercury retrograde on your ascendant is a perfect time to just reimagine how you think about yourself. That's it. And then when Mercury comes back into Virgo and it has the conjunction on your ascendant around the 22nd, it's about shattering this feeling that you need to hide, right? Because the sun is associated with your 12th house, whole sign. So maybe you've been like imagining like this new and improved version of you, or like this character that you're going to kind of have, and you put together like a new wardrobe or a little bit of different makeup or like whatever it is that you want to do. It's Libra. Of this new person that you're going to be kind of showing and getting more comfortable and feeling confident. And maybe that appears when Venus and Mercury are on your ascendant. Great time to be focusing on positive affirmations. Okay, something I love with like Venus placements in Libra or even like Venus Pluto, like you need to put on all the lingerie and stand in front of a mirror. That's really what you need to do. And you need to become more comfortable in and sexual and kind of like feeling yourself. So you can really start to kind of carry that with you. Now, maybe you're not going to feel that more until you have your Venus return, right? Which is going to be happening right around the 29th. But I think that the Venus return factored in also with the sun on your Pluto is like come the end of the month on the 29th. Maybe you've been wearing the new clothes around your apartment. Maybe you're wearing the bigger hair. Maybe you're feeling more okay, like paying more attention to yourself and pampering yourself. I think when the planets are in Virgo, it's like, is this okay? Is it, are people going to like this? Are they going to see through this? But once everything goes direct and we see planets coming into Libra, and Mercury sitting on your ascendant, you're more willing to kind of approach people, and you're going to be finding that it's just so much easier to connect with others and bring people in. But it starts with finding the ability to kind of connect to how your body moves, right? Because like Virgo or Mercury is like how your arms move, how you walk now, like what's your posture look like? Like notice how you carry yourself, and maybe you're dealing with some issues in regards to body image and like not seeing yourself for who you are right now because you haven't really adapted to the weight that you've lost. So it might take you some time during that month to kind of get back into the swing of things. But I would say maybe put some things on that are going to be a little bit more Plutonian. Like I love the combination between Pluto and Libra. I have a sun Pluto, I'm a Libra rising, and I feel like sexy doesn't have to be like fishnets and things that are sheer and things that are like very revealing. The Venus Pluto is very much accenting your curves and the Venusian figure. So it's going to be anything in relation to your hips, anything in relation to your bust, things like that, but it's very feminine. So maybe go and play with some stuff that is going to emphasize that a little bit more and help you feel sexy or just in the skin that you're in. And for the whole month, you really want to focus on just really like loving yourself, and anything you can do in front of a mirror because that's what Libra is really helpful for kind of getting your groove back. And just know that also Mars going into your 10th house, Mars rules your 8th. It's going to trine all your Libra. You're going to get a lot of attention from other people. And maybe it's also just adapting to being a little bit more communicative and be willing to, to talk to people out in the world. Really great transits that you're going to be having. You'll have to let me know how that pans out. I'm excited to hear how that works. I have the retrograde happening in my first house as well. Broke your physical issues. So a lot of it's healing then. The Mercury retrograde is going to be about healing. All right, keep us updated. You'll get lots of attention with that retrograde. Lots of attention. Thank you, Kelsey. Appreciate it. All right. So now we have got Matt, Kurt. I know you sent a couple in. Let's see. Okay. You're very welcome. Kurt won't be online for the show. Asking about Mercury retrograde in the 6th, how it'll affect you. Long story short, your job has a lot of paperwork and it's pretty sloppy. Your leadership never does anything. You work with at-risk youth. They turn a blind eye as long as they don't have to deal with it. Our paperwork person left, so we have more to do. I got a bunch of new kids all at once and I have to get all their paperwork done. I'm not worried about the paperwork sloppiness with the retrograde, but worrying about any trouble if the leadership will crack down for no reason. Wondering if at least, I'm wondering if this one last test will pass. Will be hurt during this retrograde. Okay, so let's look at that. I know you asked 2 questions. So questions about the retrograde in your 6th. That's so Mercury retrograde in the 6th. And I know you asked another question. Okay. Wondering what I see coming for your health. Getting a blood test next month. Sounds crazy. Wondering if you should keep anything super intense. Okay. Hoping my blood sugar has gotten better since that with the thyroid. Okay. So anything in regards to your health. Okay. Both are Mercury retrograde in your 6th house. So we've got Mercury for you does relate to paperwork because it's the ruler of your 3rd. And you have also got Mercury stationing retrograde from your 7th back into your 6th. So let's stay on the topic of like workers and things like that. The good news is that there's a new moon in your 6th house. And I'm getting the impression that as the sun is coming into a trine, both with Neptune as well as your natal Neptune, Uranus and Pluto, you might actually see like things really come together and you might get some support, especially right around the full moon in Pisces around September 9th. The sun trine to also the North Node and Uranus makes me feel like, yes, you can get your job done. Mercury retrograde is more like what other people aren't doing. So I'm kind of thinking that as Mercury goes retrograde back into your 6th and it comes out of the opposition with Neptune where they realize around mid-September, like we really need some help. Like we need people to kind of help pick up the pieces. And the Cazimi happening, but I think it's going to start with the Pluto trine, the 18th of September through what appears to be the 29th of September. I think there's going to be some support. Venus, we know, can be a woman. So Venus coming into the 6th house with that conjunction with Mercury makes me feel like they might hire somebody by the 25th to come in and help everything get organized. Also, that's in a trine to Pluto in the 10th. So somebody's probably going to okay it and they're going to say, hey, this is what we need to do, get the job done. Also, all those planets have been squaring Mars in the 3rd. So I would say take your time processing paperwork, okay? Take your time going through everything. Mars is in shadow. It's still in a trine to Saturn, so likely talk to other people at work. You might find that like somebody will be like, I know somebody we can bring in, like maybe we can get her hired. Like it's gonna be like a team effort. That's the feeling that I'm getting. And I also feel that full moon that you have in Pisces is really setting the stage for like being like, we can't handle all of this stuff, Switching a little bit to the health matters. A Mercury retrograde, is like about testing, especially when it dips back into your 6th house. So I'm kind of liking Mercury's retrograde because it's going to trine your sun, ruler of your 6th. So when Mercury gets back to around 3 degrees of Libra around September 19th, it'll form a trine to your sun. And likely that's when you're like looking over some kind of testing, looking anything over in terms of like results, if you need to make tweaks to your diet, if there's anything that needs to change, anything like that. Saturn's off your sun now, so in theory, health stuff should get better. Yes, you're gonna be seeing, you know, Pluto getting close and the nodes are gonna square in on the sun, but that's not gonna be until next spring where you may make some other changes. But I can't think of like a better time than Mercury retrograde right on top of your Chiron. And then here comes Venus to heal some of those issues. So from September 25th, likely through October 7th is when you're making any changes or any tweaks that you need to make. I think having Mercury in Virgo trine Pluto is wonderful. It's also like really saying that like you'll see positive results for some of the changes that you've been making. I think Venus in its home sign also is really wonderful, especially because it's going to start making trines to your sun as well. I mean, this makes me feel like you're going to get positive results. They're going to talk to you about what's been happening, what you need to change. Getting a blood test next month. I don't see anything intense. I would say if you were having like an eclipse on your sun or a Pluto conjunction to your sun, maybe, but no. Down the road, when the nodes come into a square with your sun, that can bring something up. I'm not saying this to freak you out. It can bring something up, but that's not guaranteed. It might just say that you like start going to like a new, you know, facility. But I would say when the nodes are squaring in May of next year and Pluto is conjunct your sun, but I think that's more like you go to a new hospital, you have a new doctor, you have a new treatment team, maybe you go to a new gym, something like that. It's also job changes, right? And you're not having an eclipse or anything like that on your sun. And it's also at a 3, so it's more about the mental state, worrying about your health, like super freaked out or concerned about your health. That's more kind of what I'm seeing. We'd have to look at your progressions. I know something else that's going on in your astrology is that you had that Mars, you had that square from the eclipses, right? So when we had eclipse in the fall of 2021, the eclipse in Scorpio squared your Taurus, it squared your Mars in the 6th. So that's what brought a lot of this stuff up. That's like, okay, what do I have to do? It's my body, right? And what I'm eating, 2nd house. Then you just had another eclipse that happened in Scorpio and it was in your 8th house. Oh my gosh, what am I detoxing? What am I clearing out? So the eclipses are actually really working on your Mars in the 6th. There will be more eclipses coming, not at 29, but that will be right around here. So this one here, pretty close to your North Node, but that's in the 7th. That's more about relationships. And then we've got the Taurus eclipse here around the 8th. That's going to oppose the sun, and it's not an exact square, so I think actually you're really good. I will tell you that there is like a lot of like resolution next year. At the end of summer, you're going to have a Venus retrograde. That's going to be very close to your Mars. And it's going to go like, yeah, it's conjunct your Mars when it starts to retrograde. This will be mid-July going into August of 2023. When that happens, I feel like you're taking on a new care team, because I kind of foresee you being like, okay, I'm going to a gym, or I'm, you know, working with a new doctor, like something like that will happen, but it's not going to be until like July, August of next year. Definitely though, I think this is a very important Mercury retrograde for you that's coming up, because it's going to be right on top of your Chiron. And Chiron is very sensitive. So Chiron is going to be all about where we have wounds, where we have pain. Your Chiron is in the 6th, which does deal with blood sugar. It does deal with anything in relation to processing foods, anything of that nature. And you know, you've already had this conjunction. So I would say go back and look at what's been coming up since it's been conjunct August 22nd. Through Mercury's retrograde, it'll go into your 7th, it'll come back down. So this is like you meeting with other healthcare practitioners and being able to get some guidance on healing from September 18th all the way through the 9th. And you want to work with these days, because it's all going to trine Pluto. So it's going to feel like you're on top of things. in the workspace, reorganizing things, you know, creating labels, getting everything like set up. Like, don't wait and do all the paperwork at one time. Like, do a little bit each day and make sure nothing is getting overlooked or nothing goes missing, because it's going to make oppositions to Neptune. I'm not seeing any issues in regards to health stuff, though. That's not really a thing, especially because it's going to trine Pluto and your planets in the 10th. I'm actually more concerned about what's going to come up, and if you guys do get behind and like there are, you know, you guys are short-staffed or you don't have people cleaning things or stuff like that, it can be really, really challenging and kind of like frustrating. Okay? But no, I don't see anything that's super, super concerning. And to be honest with you, you know, with Uranus fully going into your second house and Jupiter's going to come into conjunction, you know, I think you're going to learn a lot about how to eat over this next year and how to really support the body. You might start taking new herbal supplements or incorporating natural organic foods. That's the feeling that I'm getting in terms of what you're going to be dealing with in terms of your health stuff. Okay. Hopefully that is helpful for you. All right. So we're going to call last call if you guys have not already gotten on the list. I've got Tonya, Rachel, Carla, Brandon, Alyssa, Kelsey, and Tiffany. But we're at last call, so probably nobody else for the evening. All right, so we've got now Tonya. Tonya says, this is Mystic Road. I should really just join. Quit my job. Last day is 9:30. Will I find another opportunity right away or should I take some time off? Well, Virgo rising, be careful what you ask for. You might have too many things going on. Here's what I would say. Mars is going to go retrograde. Mars rules your 8th house of other people's money. It does make me feel like as Mars comes into a trine with Saturn, you do have the opportunity for work to appear. However, Mercury, your chart lord, which is about communications, will retrograde back and forth through your second house, back into your first, and it's going to hit your natal Uranus. So it tells me you're going to find things, but you're like, does that work for my schedule, right? Like, do I like the benefits? Do I like where I'm working? Like, don't just automatically jump on anything that pops up, especially knowing that Mars will go retrograde later this year in your 10th house. So my advice is, if something comes in, it's got to make sense for you. I would rather see like Mars in a trine with Saturn. I feel like this is like waiting for the appropriate thing to come in that really works with your schedule and it makes sense. And you also feel like you like the people that you're working with and that it's going to work in a sense of time. Offers are definitely coming in at the end of September. I would say like, you know, plan on just seeing what's out there and exploring your options for the next month. A job can come in very suddenly, especially when, you know, the Sun or Uranus come into conjunction, or like when Venus comes into conjunction with Uranus. But around the 24th, you're going to have the Moon, Venus, and Mercury all in Virgo. And Mercury's retrograding in conjunction with Venus. So it tells me that there's going to be a possibility, there's an offer, you get a call back from something you've applied to. You have to negotiate a little bit, go back and forth, see if it works for you. I would advise you to, unless you feel good about it early, to be like locking into something in mid-October. When Venus and the Sun are coming together, it's trining Mars. So it's like, yes, there's money, you know you're going to like it, you're going to like the pay. And it's also in a trine to Saturn. The other option is you can wait if you're waiting for the right thing to appear until Mercury comes into a trine with Saturn, which will be right around October 22nd. It will also come into a trine with Mars in your 10th house of Gemini. So if you're not totally thrilled with what happens at the end of September, you could take something and the Mars retrograde would literally be you returning to work at the end of October, beginning of November. You need to see a really strong Mercury transit to facilitate, work coming in. Certainly next year, Jupiter is going to come into conjunction with your Mercury. So that tells me be careful with what you're taking. Don't just take a job because you're like, I need a job to get through, because likely you'll kind of flip-flop all over the place with Mars retrograde in your 10th square Neptune. It can also be you going do I like who I'm working for? Do I like the clients? Do I like the people I'm dealing with? It could be a little overwhelming. because Mars will be also in a square to all of your planets. Like, do not just take anything. Just taking anything is not going to work, because you're going to find with Mars in a square to your Virgo placements and also in a square to Neptune that you may not be totally thrilled. And then you're realizing, okay, I got to go back to the drawing board, and you're possibly looking for something new, or you're telling yourself you'll stay through the end of the year. Now, Mars will trine Saturn again, and that's going to be around November 30th. So that's also a time for like finding something, negotiating in some way. I mean, I'm looking further into the future of this chart, just knowing that Jupiter is going to come into conjunction with your Venus around February. So you're going to be able to make more money and have the room to grow, and there could be benefits. And then also as Jupiter comes into conjunction with your Mercury, and then, you know, it's gonna go into your 9th house. That tells me that there's a possibility that you're getting into something that allows you to travel, or it's going to give you room to continue your education, or you're going to be training in some capacity, or you're doing something that deals with sales or marketing. I don't know what you do. You know, Gemini midheavens usually can do a number of different things. But this is something that I would say you really want to ask yourself, are you just going to another job, and are you doing something that you've always done? Do you want to make a change? Because next spring, Jupiter is going to hit your North Node. It's also going to hit your Sun. Like, you could look at, you know, going and continuing and getting a certification, or finalizing like an actual like educational program, getting a degree in something. And it's also about considering taking a job in another place and relocating, because Jupiter rules your 4th house of home, right? So I don't know what you do, but I would say, I think a Mars retrograde in your 10th is saying like, yeah, I can go job to job, but if I'm seeing the same kind of results and not really enjoying what I'm doing, or who I'm working with, or if I'm working at a job where I'm doing too many things and wearing too many hats, you might realize that it's time to make like an overhaul altogether, right? But next year makes me feel like you're going to school, you're traveling, or you're training, or you're teaching in some capacity because of the eclipses and also Jupiter on your Sun. So I don't know if you've been thinking about any of those things, but it's very likely that any of those things can pop up. But yeah, work is definitely coming in. I just think that with Mars square Neptune, you got to really make sure you like who you're working with. It may not even manifest fully with people that you're working with. It can be relationships as well. It's a very complex square. I would really recommend listening to the videos that I'm going to put out for these time periods. I already did something on Mars going through Gemini. You should go and listen to it, especially for like Virgo rising, because likely you're going to go back and forth. So you might start something, hear back from a job that you really wanted, and then try to figure out if you can do both, or if you can go to something else. So it's not a matter of will there be work. It's, are you creating the time for the right position, right? Working with data, trying to find a job gig to hold for the current job to come back as a consultant. So a job's coming back, Mars, probably when Mars comes back into a trine with Saturn then. So you're looking at that probably happening sometime around the end of November, or when Mars is direct and it's trine Saturn and Mercury, that would be like between February and I would say like March of 2023. Yeah, I would say it's good to be flexible with these squares, and I really feel like for you personally, if you're looking for a gig in between, take gigs up until the end of the year, until what you're waiting for returns with that Mars retrograde. But definitely listen to that video, because I talk about the whole sequence. I'm going to do more on it too. I'll talk about it in the horoscopes as well. Okay? Hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully you find something that is rewarding. All right, so who else do we got here? Rachel. What's up, Rachel? All right. Synastry with Pajama Guy. He wants to be in a monogamous relationship now. Is it it? Is it for real? We're planning a road trip next weekend. Are we through the worst? When is a good time to take it to the next level and making it public? All right, let me plug his info in. I will save Pajama Guy for you. That's what I'm going to call him, though. Okay, so that's 5, 4. Okay, so he's 4/16/82, but we don't know the time. Do 12 p.m. and we will do solar house. There we go. So Rachel and Pajama Guy. Where is he? Or 1682. There we go. Okay. Rachel, Pajama Guy. All right. So he wants to be in a committed relationship now. Of course he does, with Jupiter retrograde over your guys' composite Venus. Can't make that stuff up. Jupiter is the lord of your guys' composite 7th, although we don't know the time, but we're going off of noon. So Jupiter stationing over your 7th house lord, and it's at a 7, so it's about relationships. It's also cool for travel because you've got these planets that are moving through your 3rd house and they're coming into trines with your guys' composite Mercury. So I think that's nice. I would say a couple times to watch, Rachel, is going to be Mars on the Ascendant can bring you guys lots of adventure in September. It can also be great for just like passion and coming together and like sexuality and all that fun stuff. But it will retrograde over the Ascendant, and it's the ruler of the 11th. So it's making me wonder, like, is he going to stick to it, or is he going to come back and go, okay, no, should we be friends? Like, have you had that conversation with him and said to him, like, okay, are we doing this? Because I would recommend that. Mars on the Ascendant, trine Saturn is great for like planning trips, going places, sharing ideas, learning things about each other. And then you guys also have a Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus that's happening in the 4th. So there's like a lot of like discussing the past and like letting the past go, or like clearing the past out as you guys move forward in the end of September, beginning of October. Something I am noticing is that you guys are going to have an eclipse that is going to be right around here on October 25th. You're going to have an eclipse that's pretty much within a 2-degree range of your guys' Saturn. Okay, so I wonder if this is going to be like heart-to-heart conversations that's like, okay, are we doing this? It does somebody say, I love you. The eclipse conjunct Saturn in the 5th makes me feel like that's possible. I'm also looking at it making, sextiles to Neptune in the 7th, talking about what life could be. I don't know if you're going to talk to him about how he feels about children, how he feels about you having kids, if he wants kids. Like those conversations can come up because it's going to be in the 5th house, but it's in opposition to your sun. Just word to the wise, eclipse in the 5th house. Okay, just be careful if you're not trying to have kids. Just keep that in mind. With the opposition to the sun, it looks like you guys are going to have a conversation about how you're feeling and moving forward and what that means in terms of love and relationships and children. I think it's going to be about being like, okay, does he hang out with the kids? How is he around the kids? You might have him more around them at the end of October. Mars will conjunct your guys' North Node. And this is about your goals and being passionate and also socially integrating with one another because it rules your 11th house of friendships. So as it conjuncts that, then it will retrograde. So it's like, well, where are we going moving forward? The one thing I would say to also watch for is when Mars goes retrograde, and then you guys have planets in the 7th in opposition to Mars. So you want to make sure that come the end of the year, he's not changing his tune. Sometimes Mars on the Ascendant with planets in the 7th is like you guys having some intense exchanges or having to talk about what you guys each want individually while still trying to kind of balance a relationship. But that's not going to be until December. And obviously Mercury retrogrades really affect this chart. I'm looking at Mercury going retrograde in the 4th. Like, did he just move? Is he thinking about moving? Has there been some back and forth with his living situation? Anything like that? hang with my kids and tell my dad. Yeah. I would say if you're going to do that, it's likely going to be something that you're talking about, you're going to start doing at the end of October. So it's just, what, 2 months away? So I would wait till the end of October for that. Wait for the eclipse because it's going to be in opposition to the sun. So really waiting to see if he's cool being around the kids and being around baby daddy. Okay. So yeah, it's more about then integrating in this next month, more alone time for each other within your guys' physical space. And in the new year also, you know, when Jupiter is back in Aries, it's going to come back to your guys' composite Venus, and like, oh my goodness, you're going to have Jupiter and Juno, which is husband and wife, conjunct your guys' composite Venus. This could be that you guys have much more serious relationship conversations in the spring of next year, especially from like February on. And then you're going to have the North Node conjunct your guys' sun. I'm not going to get ahead of myself, but it is possible you guys do talk about living arrangements and things next spring, especially like around April when the North Node's on your guys' sun, ruler of the third. But integrating more into each other's life even more so, especially like in a living situation, because you're going to have an eclipse on your Mercury. So it's like, well, why don't we do that? What's our goal? Well, how would it be easier in some way? So yeah, I do think that timing-wise could not be more impeccable than Jupiter on your guys' Venus. And when Jupiter comes into conjunction with your moon, you might start hanging out with each other's friends a lot more and just kind of like integrating more socially, you know? I definitely think so. And also just watching the North Node go into Aries next year, and it's going to come into conjunction with your guys' Mercury, and then it's going to come into conjunction with your moon. I feel like you guys are on the path of like realizing that you can find, you know, a middle ground. But the probably the most challenging time that I'm seeing is probably going to be December. So I would hold off on really integrating him with, you know, the kids or baby daddy, probably until at least the end of October. So that way, you know, you're more solid. So if you guys do have a little turbulence in December, you guys are good. This is your composite moon. So Jupiter next year will be on your guys' composite moon at 14 degrees of Aries. So that's going to be right around March of 2023, next year. And it's talking about your goals financially, and like if you guys wanted to get out of renting and buying a home or investing more in a home or getting more stable in a home sense. But the fact that he came around and wanted to be more committed while Jupiter was on your Venus at a 7 is about the relationship. But when Jupiter hits your moon at a 14, it's about being solid, exchanges, also talking more about like financial planning and things like that, your goals in some way. Yeah, but it looks positive. Watch out for that eclipse, though. It's conjunct your Saturn, so be careful if you don't want any more babies. But also it's the talk of being in a relationship and children and like the maturity revolving around that. And like, okay, once I bring you into my life and you're involved with my kids, what comes with that, you know? Hopefully that's helpful for you, Rachel. Thank you for stopping by. Keep us updated. Now I've got his chart. All right, so let's see here. So we've got Carla. And let's see. Where was Carla? Carla, did you send that information? It's not in your memo. You guys got to put that in there so I can input it into the software. Carla. That was 5/7/96. 1:49 p.m. Valencia. And the other person. 2:27:96. 12:07 a.m. All right, so let's take a look here. Did I not save you? Shoot, hold on one second. Sorry, guys. So many people in here. Carla. There we go. Okay, long story short, my person and I were engaged, supposed to get married next year in March due to a huge and massive misunderstanding. He called off the wedding. Obviously super painful and confusing. What can I expect in the short term of our relationship? Okay, so I'm going to look at your guys' chart each separately really quick. So you're a Virgo rising. Okay. And Uranus is on your sun. Mars is going to go retrograde over your Gemini. Venus. Neptune rules your 7th. And you've got Neptune in a square to Venus. Okay. And then let me look at his chart. Scorpio rising. Eclipse on the descendant. So just a couple things. So he's a Scorpio rising, and we've got the eclipses that happened in the 7th. So there was an eclipse that took place mid-November. That was a full moon eclipse in your 7th house last fall. I don't know when you announced the engagement, but that kind of makes sense. Then recently in the spring, April, May, you had eclipses in your sign and on his ascendant and in his descendant. So changes with him, changes with relationships. You've got Venus in Gemini. Mars is going to retrograde in conjunction with your Venus, but it's going to be in a square to Neptune in your 7th, which is a partner being confused, not knowing what's going on, not knowing what they're wanting. And he is going to have a Mars retrograde in his 7th over his moon, which is about his wife, or soon-to-be wife, or a partner. And also Mars rules his 5th house of like true love. So I kind of feel inclined to tell you separately for both of you guys, the Mars retrograde can be about working things out and figuring out if you guys are going to come back together. The issue that I have here is more that you have Venus in Gemini and Mars is going to go retrograde over your Venus. So there's lots of changes that are going to be happening in regards to either your career or who you are out in the world, and you really want to pay attention to your relationship status changing possibly during that retrograde. All right, so let's get to the composite chart. And this is the composite chart of the two of you guys together. So together you're a Libra rising, and you're 16 degrees Libra rising, and you have got the sun in Aries in the 7th house, and you've got Mercury conjunct Mars. That's in the 6th house. It looks like the 7th, but it's in the 6th. A couple questions. Are you guys still talking? Like, what's the deal? So you were supposed to get married next year in March, but you've called off the wedding. I mean, the eclipses could not be more bang on. There was an eclipse that happened in his, 7th house, which was the end of April going into mid-May. It was like, okay, we're done. It could have been like a really big blow up in a relationship. A lot of Scorpio risings had that. For the two of you guys, I mean, Mars rules your 7th house of marriage. Mars is going to go retrograde in Gemini, so it's about reviewing what commitments you potentially made to each other. You do have Jupiter that is going to come back into conjunction with your moon, but here's the issue that I have here just looking at the composite chart, okay? You guys have composite Saturn at the last degree, the moon, and Mars and Mercury and the sun, that's all sitting in your 6th house. The 6th house is divorce. So what happened was Jupiter might have blown that situation up early and given you precursors and kind of showing you what problems you may have had down the road. I'm not judging, I'm just saying in a composite chart with like all those planets technically sitting in the 6th, that can be an indication of a fallout, that can be an indication of a divorce. I have concerns down the road, like next year when Jupiter comes into conjunction with these planets again, what it means. If it means that, you know, you guys would have had issues down the road leading up to the wedding anyway, it's very possible, to be honest with you. And also Uranus is coming into really close contact next year with your guys' composite Venus. Like, in so many ways, I look at this and I'm like, listen, if this was not going to work, would you have rather known before you got married, or would you have rather seen this kind of potentially fall apart early? Because to me, this looks like you guys were ultimately going to start really having some problems in the relationship, in the marriage within a year. As the North Node and Jupiter goes through the 7th, which doesn't always mean good things. And Saturn's going over your Juno. Also, he's got the moon in Gemini in the 7th, okay? And it's in a square to Saturn in his 4th. So that tells me issues communicating, misunderstandings with women. You know, can the two of you guys come back together during the Mars retrograde? Yes, that is possible, because you guys are going to have it over your personal planet. But I'm looking at this chart going, the South Node, the Sun, Mercury, Mars, and the Moon all being connected to the 6th house is not a really solid indication of what would have been a long-term relationship, unfortunately. And I think that you guys got nailed by the eclipses because you had an eclipse that was in opposition to your Venus. When did you guys actually split? If you don't mind me asking. I'm going to go back in time. I'm going to show you these eclipses. So we've got one that happened here around April 30th. Didn't necessarily need to make anything happen. It was conjunct Uranus. But then we had the other one that happened here around the 15th of May. That was Scorpio eclipse at 24 degrees, right in opposition to Venus, and Venus was in the 8th. Okay, so that eclipse, it can have effects for months. That eclipse then got triggered in July and August when planets went through Leo in your 11th house and squared Venus. Let me ask you a question. Venus in the 8th house, misunderstanding. Was the misunderstanding over another person? Was the misunderstanding over like somebody, you know, getting jealous of something, somebody questioning whether or not somebody was being honest in regards to another woman or in regards to money? Did that come up at all? August 3rd. So let's look at what was going on there. August 3rd, so we've got Mars-Uranus still in conjunction to Venus, and that's in opposition, coming into the opposition point. Yeah, past trauma, yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, you know, like I said, can Jupiter bring you guys back together when Jupiter's conjunct the moon? Sure, if you guys want to go to counseling or therapy or something together. And I'm not trying to be harsh, but I'm just being honest with you. This is not a very strong chart for a marriage, because having planets in the 6th house means there's going to be a sense of somebody telling the other person, you need to clean up, you need to get better, you need to get sober, or this isn't working, or there being like a nitpicking that's going on between the two of you. And it's 12th house to the 7th, so it means there's going to be conflict and anger and aggression, and somebody's dealing with some kind of like repressed emotions or feelings, and it's just not super conducive for the two of you guys together. See what happens during the Mars retrograde. I think Mars going retrograde over his moon can literally bring him back to a woman and like trying to talk to a woman about issues and trauma from his past. However, it's the ruler of his fifth. So if you come back into his life, it's because you're his true love and you guys are trying to figure out how to get married. If he doesn't, and if you find out that it kind of goes more in the direction of Gemini, that's like, okay, is he talking to somebody else? Is he getting back out there? Mars will go retrograde on your Venus too, and likely it's going to bring you another person. And if you guys do decide to get back together, it's probably a good idea to pick a date. I know that you said that you had a date set, but a good date astrologically for when you guys actually would get married. And just keep in the back of your head, you guys haven't gone through your Saturn's return yet. I'm not saying you can't get married without doing that, but together you guys are going to have a Saturn return with Saturn and Neptune, which tells me if somebody's having drinking issues, drug issues, psychological issues, emotional issues, and they're not handling their business, it's like you'll get married and then 2 or 3 years into the marriage, you're going to be like, where is this coming from? You know, like, why are you having all these problems? I would be more concerned with 2025 and 2026 with North Node, Saturn, and Neptune conjunct, because that tells me that that could be an ending. And also with Uranus conjunct your guys' Venus here. So it's like you want to make sure if you guys get back together, he's gone, he's worked through his trauma, he's worked through issues, and that you guys are picking a good date. If you guys decide to get married, good luck. I know that's difficult, but man, it's really clear in his chart those eclipses are just really affecting him. And if he hasn't healed, it's better to know sooner rather than later, okay? Keep us updated, come back, especially during the Mars retrograde. Let us know what happens. All right. So we have got Brandon. We are not taking anybody else. So I don't know who just slid in here, but we're not taking any other readings. That should be up on the screen. Let's see what Brandon says. Brandon, I need your info. I do not have you. If you can send that to me. Mid-October. Let's see, who else do we have here? Brandon, if you want to send that to me, let me know. I'm gonna... There we go. Thank you. June 3rd, 97. And that's at 3:55 a.m. Cool. Okay, so you had questions about... There he is. Look out for mid-October through the coming months. So mid-October, like I've said before, that's probably some of the better astrology for the rest of the year is going to be the mid-October period. Pretty good for you too. Looking at Venus and the Sun coming into your fifth, that looks like it can be heating up, bringing opportunities for romantic connections. Even if you're not looking for it, it's highlighting the 5th house Lord and Venus, the 7th house Lord. You're going to see Venus pull ahead and conjunct the Sun. Look for really prominent people that you're meeting, like, you know, women that pop up that can partner with you or help you in some way. There can be new romantic people that are coming in. And that is going to be around the 20th of October through this eclipse on the 25th. Now, Mercury is also going to be in a trine to your Venus and also Mars on your Venus. So it's like, even if you're not looking for it, to me that looks like very relationship-y or going back and forth with somebody that you've met, someone that you're talking to. Maybe you're talking about traveling to meet with them. It's also going to be in a trine to your natal Jupiter. Holy cow! The second 2 weeks of October is like really wonderful in this chart because I think that you're going to be connecting with people. Now, Mars is going to get up to about 25 degrees before it retrogrades, so it'll be conjunct your Venus, but not quite. So that's also interesting that your chart lord is stopping short of Venus. So it's talking about rethinking the way that you look at relationships and how you're communicating with other people, and if you're much more open to letting other people work with you and help you. Leading into like November, going into December, I could see a little bit of back and forth with someone. Probably at a distance is kind of the vibe that I'm getting looking at this. And when Mars goes retrograde, it's also going to be in a trine to Saturn. So I'm really loving the end of November for you because your chart ruler is now in your second house. It's reevaluating making money. How do I want to make money? What am I doing with my resources? How am I pulling it together with other people? How am I working or meeting with other people who can kind of help me expand the opportunity to not only develop community, but also like find a way to bring in money. That seems to be the theme, the end of November for you. Then you've also got Saturn coming back into a sextile with your natal Saturn. So groups, working with other people, being around other people, really paying attention to friends, having a diverse kind of group of people that you're collaborating with. Jupiter goes retrograde as well. It won't dip back into your 11th house. It's in the 12th, so you're still continuing your spiritual development and learning. And then you have got a Mercury retrograde at the end of the year, beginning of next year, that is all about reimagining what it is that you're doing in terms of your public image, or kind of figuring out like, do I want to go to work? Do I want to collaborate with a partner? Am I going to start working with other people? That end of December, beginning of January is a time to really pay attention because you're going to have Mercury, Venus, and Pluto all conjunct on your natal Neptune. I wonder if you're going to sign up for like a mystery school, if you're going to start doing some kind of work relating to like training in another country, something in regards to shamanism, maybe. That might be happening for you as well, especially with the trines to your Mercury. So I'm wondering, like, are you traveling somewhere? Are you wanting to work with people in another place? Are you doing some kind of like work study program? That can be happening at the end of the year. And Mars will also be going retrograde back and forth over your sun. So that also is pretty prominent because you're finding that there are ways that you can make money creatively, be able to collaborate with other people, kind of better express yourself. So the Mars retrograde is actually quite prominent for you. So you'll see that conjunction around mid-December. And you're going to see that conjunction also here pretty soon. Right around mid-September, September 11th. Well, look for places that you can go study and stay. So people might say, hey, you can come and stay here. There's like a work exchange. Maybe you work, you grow food, you help out, you help put together the programs. Maybe you're helping other counselors or something like that. But something like that should appear. And look when Mars is conjunct your sun and it's coming into a trine with Jupiter. So it'll be from mid-September to right around like mid-October, because Mars is your chart ruler. So it'll come into your third, looking at ways to be able to travel and learn something. It's going to trine Jupiter, Lord of the Ninth. You might start a program. You can be doing it locally or online, but then as it retrogrades, I have a feeling you're going to be looking at going on a retreat or meeting other people. It's kind of like something of that nature. But Jupiter going back into Pisces, I think is really great for like your shamanic studies. And I have a feeling that by the time Jupiter fully comes into your sign next year on your ascendant, and you have that eclipse, you're going to be finding that there's like a new place that you're calling home the end of next spring going into next summer. But for right now, getting ahead of myself, right now, I just want you to really focus on the fact that you're having this Mercury retrograde that is taking place over... It's going back and forth, you know, over your north node. So that, to me, that seems rather significant. When Mercury comes back to your north node here, September 27th through the 9th, how can I be of service? How can I get more in routine? How's my body moving? How am I feeling? You know, what is it that I want to be doing? Super powerful for getting organized, coming up with a routine. And it's going to be conjunct Mars. So if you want to start working out, making a change in how you're working out, thinking about finding a location that you can be like working and collaborating with other people. That's a time you want to pay attention to, especially because it's trining Pluto. So it looks like if you're looking for work, you'll find it. If you're not, you're going to find people who are going to ask you if you can help them and help be of service. And it's all in some really awesome trines, not only to transit Pluto, but also to the North Node and Mercury in your sign. So to me, it seems more about body and like scheduling, to be honest with you. Hopefully that is helpful. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens, because even if you're not looking for it, this seems like very much like clients either start showing up or like romantic potential people start showing up right around that mid-October period. You have to let us know what happens. It looks fun. Definitely like lots of socializing with trines to Saturn. All right, so we've got Alyssa Miller. Let's see. Do we have her information? It's not in the memo. You guys got to put that in there for me. Let's see. I think she might have sent it separately because I see a separate one. I was too excited. There you are. June 14th, 1997. Alyssa. June 14th, 1997. 6:03 p.m. San Luis Obispo. Okay. Potential romance transits. Let's take a look. No worries, I got you. June 14th, 1997, 6:03 p.m. Scorpio rising. So you had that eclipse smack dab on your ascendant as well. I was just talking about that with another Scorpio rising chart. So it was right around here. So that eclipse that you had, it was on your ascendant in opposition to your descendant. So wrapping stuff up about who you are, who other people are, kind of like a clean slate when it's on your ascendant. Kind of has you in your feelings. But romance and relationships, I mean, my goodness, of course that's something you want to know about right now. Because if we speed up to where we are now, at the end of August, you have got Mars coming into conjunction with your Mercury. So there's definitely going to be some interest with other people. Although Mars will be in shadow, take a look at that right around September 9th, 10th. And then Mars is the ruler of your fifth of romance. It's going to start coming into a sextile with your Saturn around the end of September. And it's going to conjunct your Sun, ruler of the ninth. So if you're traveling, if you're taking a course, if you're taking lessons, if you're going back to school, if you're wanting to go on vacation, these are all ways you can meet people. Ninth house is traveling, fifth house is pleasure. So I could see Mars coming into conjunction with your Sun, where you're like taking a course, you're traveling somewhere and you meet someone. Okay. I want you to be social. I want you to go places with friends. I want you to do all of this stuff, like really the beginning of October, all through these trines. So, I mean, beginning of October through the third week. If you can't travel and you're like, I can't do anything, you know, plan something, book something. So when Mars comes retrograde on your Sun, you can do something later in the year. As a Scorpio rising, you're a late Scorpio rising. So Mars is your fifth house lord. I mean, man, Mars going retrograde over your Sun, I would be more concerned with people from the past coming back. I have a feeling that it can be somebody who you look at as a friend because it's at a 23. So you could be like, well, we're just friends. Or like, I met through a friend, or my friend introduced me to this person. And you could be going back and forth with them, especially around the mid-November period. Now, I like the conjunctions to your Sun. I mean, you're not quite old enough to remember the last time that this happened. It didn't have like a really big impact on you, I don't think. This was happening in 2008, I want to say. I think it was 2008. So it was the end of 2007, beginning of 2008. And, you know, a Mars retrograde in your 7th, I mean, I've seen Scorpio and Sagittarius who have had these transits. It brings somebody very significant into your life. Can be from your past, but it can also be like past life. Retrogrades bring karmic people in, so I would say keep an eye out for that. And it's all going to trine Saturn. And Saturn is hanging out currently in the sign of Aquarius. It's in the 3rd. So I have seen a lot of Scorpios when they have these retrogrades, Scorpio risings. You'll meet somebody either when you're like venturing out of town, or if you go out and about and you meet somebody who's visiting in your town. Be active on apps is something else I would say. You can be meeting people on apps. So even while you're traveling, trying to meet people on social apps, somebody might send you a message. You might go back and forth over the phone a lot, especially with Mars on your Sun, trine Jupiter in your 3rd. And that's going to be something you're going to keep seeing. You're going to keep meeting people who like live further away. And when Saturn comes to square your ascendant or your descendant, and that'll be in the new year, you're probably going to have a conversation with somebody at the tail end of the Mars retrograde when Mars has gone direct and it's coming out of shadow. When Mars comes into conjunction with your Sun again, it's like somebody being like, well, would you move here? Would you move there? Could you come here? Could I go there? And it's going to be really wonderful because Saturn is going to be coming into conjunction with your IC. So it looks like somebody may consider moving, or somebody might be talking about moving to you. I'm liking with Mars conjunct your Venus in trine to Saturn. It looks like you're willing to go through a total transformation, either in terms of your personal life, your home, what have you, to go deeper into union with a relationship. Wow, then you're going to have Venus on your Sun crossing over those same degrees. So it's like, be careful what you ask for. You know, you've got more eclipses coming that are going to be in Scorpio and Taurus next year. Looks like you have got, that's not going to be an eclipse in Taurus. The eclipses are actually going to be in Aries next spring. But when the Sun goes into the 7th house and Jupiter is with the North Node in the 5th, I feel like relationships are really expanding for you next summer. You may talk seriously about a more serious commitment with Juno on your Sun. And even if it takes a little bit of time, Saturn will go back and forth over the most southern part of your chart on your IC, and it's going to square. So it's like you'll go back and forth for a little while, and then you'll be like, okay, we got to figure something out. And then finally, when Jupiter and Uranus fully go into your 7th house, I have a feeling this is possibly talking about a much more serious long-term commitment. And committing more long-term, talking about getting married or settling down maybe. And that's looking like around spring of 2024. So don't worry, things are going to be fine. It's just a matter of timing. And yes, Mars will be retrograding. Mars is actually going to start retrograding right around the end of October this year. So if you guys haven't already seen that, I put a video out about it. But right around here, Mars will start retrograding at 25 of Gemini. It's going to retrograde all the way back to 8 degrees of Gemini. Mars will spend like almost 7 months in Gemini. So it's going to be very active for you. And I would say don't make any too serious commitments until Mars comes back into conjunction with your Sun and it's coming into a trine with Saturn. And that's going to be closer to about the end of February. I'm not saying you can't commit to a relationship, but you'll see after the retrograde has ended and it's coming out of shadow what's going to stick. Okay? Looks very exciting. You'll have to let me know what happens. That's a really big transit for your 5th house lord to go retrograde. If it's somebody from the past comes back, it's somebody who you're meant to be with. I'll just say that. Good luck. Yes, it will be retrograding in Gemini in the 7th. Let's see, who else do we have here? Tiffany? And we've got Kelsey too. You're welcome. I don't want to miss Kelsey. I think yeah. Let me take Kelsey and then we'll get Tiffany. Kelsey. Thanks, Tiff. I'll plug you in just a second. So we have got Kelsey. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. November 4th, 89. $3:38 a.m. Oops, Overland Park. That's not it. There we go. Okay, Kelsey says, just a general reading, what to expect. Libra rising. Well, Saturn's on your north node. How's that going? It's retrograding back over your north node, so it should be telling you something. And you've got Uranus that has now worked its way out of the oppositions with your Sun and Pluto, so that's good. Now we've got the Mercury retrograde on your ascendant. So I know you're asking about the next couple of months, but this Mercury retrograde is important. Mercury rules your 12th house and your 9th house. It's all about your beliefs. It's all about managing stress. It's about spiritually cleansing, decluttering, getting everything clear. This can be a little bit of a doozy on your ascendant because you might be feeling a little bit more wiped out than usual. You might also get a lot of good feedback from other people. So Mercury in opposition to Jupiter is like quite literally what you're asking for. If you're looking for solutions, if you're looking for assistance, if you need a pastor, if you need a therapist, if you need a counselor, if you need a reading, like wonderful, because Mercury is in opposition to Jupiter, which means pray for it, meditate on it, reflect on it, ask the universe. The universe is going to come through. It's going to give you the support that you need. Like seriously, trust me. I'm having these transits and it's like, I'll think about something and I'm like, man, this isn't really working. And then a solution pops up. And I have realized over the last couple of days, it's about thinking about it, meditating on it, not getting totally wrapped up in what's not working, but just asking for assistance. And whether it's from a person or, you know, a deity or a god or whatever, an alien, something pops up, and it can even come in a dream or an epiphany. Keep a notebook nearby, it'll help you. And be open to getting other people's feedback and perspective. Great time even to be getting a reading, honestly, with this transit going on. Mercury also rules your 9th house. So I'm looking at Mercury coming into a trine with Mars. So it's like you're finding the right people, you're getting the faith back. Like there is a sense of like reflecting on, where do I want to travel to? Where do I want to visit? What do I believe in? What do I want to study? There should be things like that coming up. The 9th house is about good fortune and the bigger picture. So work with this transit really from now until about the 4th. Man, not even that. Now until Mercury turns retrograde. So right around the 8th. So for like the next 10 days, just put it out there. You know, like if you're looking to study a new topic, if you're looking to get into a new practice or belief system, stay open, things are going to come. And also I'm looking at Mercury then going retrograde conjunct your ascendant again around the 20th of September. Through that new moon that's right on your ascendant, 2 degrees of Libra. That's big. So put September 25th on your calendar. That is the restart button. So if you have to rest, recuperate, sleep in, you know, get all your bad habits out of your system, whatever you got to do between now and September 25th, do that. It's a great time to travel. It's a good time to also do some like shadow work or retreat stuff. If you need to heal something, things like that can be really helpful for you between now and then. But as soon as that new moon hits on your ascendant, it's going to feel like an eclipse because it's going to be right on your ascendant. That's your body, getting back into the flow of your body, how you feel, setting new intentions for the year ahead. Very powerful. It's telling me that throughout this new year, everything is going to be new. You know, and especially you're going to see it really manifest during the eclipses that are going to be taking place next spring. I mentioned Saturn conjunct the North Node, trying to tell you something. So, you know, when Saturn approaches the North Node, at least in my experience, we have the same North Node. I had a little bit of like gloom. I was like, oh God, like something's coming. But then I realized it was just growing up, maturing, figuring out what makes me happy, trying to be creative and all of these things, you know, for myself, for my own happiness, 5th house. Now that Saturn has retrograded back, just recently, it's like a revision or a revising of like, okay, but What are you doing about it? How are you creating more happiness? How does your heart space feel? How are you living more authentically? Okay. Really important questions to be asking yourself, because by the time you get into Libra season, when all of these planets in mid-October are trining, it's going to be about creating your own happiness, expressing yourself authentically, stepping into your own personal power, being cool, being on your own, doing your own thing. And then Saturn's going to go direct. That'll be at the end of October. Saturn's going to come into conjunction with your North Node one more time. That's going to be strong, really December, just in entirety. And it's at 21, so it's a Sag degree. What are you teaching? Where are you traveling? As silly as it sounds, are you making time for fun? Are you booking a vacation? Are you teaching somebody something? What are you growing? What are you raising? Because it's a Jupiter degree. Are you thinking about having kids? Saturn being there is really saying to you, if it's not children, it's self-employment. If it's not self-employment, it's dating. So it's like one of these things that's supposed to be bringing you more happiness. And as Saturn leaves your North Node, he ain't going to be back for 28, 29 years. So whatever you're laying the groundwork for throughout this whole year, it's about something that, some project or something that you're kind of giving birth to. And I imagine that it may come to full fruition when Venus and Saturn are there, closer to the end of January 2023 through, let's say, March of 2023, when the Sun, Venus, all these planets show up. This is also about heart healing, healing the heart space, healing the inner child, really developing your own personal talents. Aquarius 5th house is kind of weird because there's like a lot of self-sacrifice for other people creatively, but the North Node's in the 5th. So it's about your talent, but doing it in a unique and a different way. The ruler is Uranus, and you have Uranus that's conjunct your IC. So are you creating time in your home? Do you have enough space to do arts and crafts and all kinds of things that you like doing for pleasure and for playtime? If you don't, you need to create that space. Purging and detoxing physically, mentally, body-wise, material-wise, around my house the last month, really, all of the above. Yeah, you still have time to do it, right? Because Mercury's in shadow, so it's like, maybe it's just me. I've been a little lazier. For me, it's been, let's shake out all the ideas. Let's use the retrograde to reorganize things, to plan, to relabel, to get down and dirty, all of that stuff in terms of like cleaning the house and all of that. We have the whole lunar cycle. So it can go all the way until the full moon in Pisces in 2 weeks, where you're feeling like, okay, I feel more zen in my space. Maybe a little feng shui can help, a little bit of meditation, going swimming, especially around that full moon. That's going to be in your 6th, kind of near Neptune. Been thinking about starting my own business and whether to admit feelings to a certain someone about wanting to settle down and wanting kids. Let me tell you something. Saturn coming back to your North Node is about timing, right? Because Saturn is timing. So we would have to look at your progress chart and stuff like that. But I think Saturn coming finally out of a conjunction with your 2nd house, you're realizing like, I don't need things. I want experiences. I don't want to buy stuff. I don't want to consume stuff. I want to create things. So you're shifting the values a little bit. So now that Saturn's going to come back to your North Node, and it's about timing, generally speaking, yeah, Saturn on your North Node is going to be about having a conversation about being like, okay, what's going on with the timing in regards to having children? And that's more planning and timing, especially because Saturn rules your 4th. So it's stuff in regards to your home base. You know, what do you need to do? Do you talk about moving in with somebody? Do you physically need to move to a bigger house? Things like that. You need to see a really strong transit to your natal Uranus or Saturn for a kid to happen, but you are going to have a Mercury retrograde that's going to be happening there. So Mercury is going to be going retrograde back and forth over your Saturn. So to me, it looks like if you're not having these conversations soon while Saturn is on your North Node, you're doing it in the new year when Mercury goes retrograde over your Saturn. And once you come into your birthday this November, then you're in a 10th house annual perfection year. Great year for launching new business stuff. And you want to really focus on what's happening with the lunar eclipses in the spring, because you might be launching something. And when you have Mercury come into conjunction with your moon, it's about family planning or creating like an office space at home. Saturn in the 5th, you know, like my North Node's in the 5th, and I knew I had some of those transits years back, and I was like, no, it's not gonna be a kid, it's gonna be a business, and it became a business, which has basically been my child. So it's been something I have to tend to every day. So if you haven't done that, I would say it's a great time to really buckle down, have the conversation with somebody, have that heart-to-heart 5th house about that, and also planning in the structure of the physical space to be able to facilitate that if that's what you want to do, okay? Let me know how it goes. You've got Jupiter coming into a trine with your Venus, so I have to tell you relationships are going to get particularly good next year. Lots of communication and opportunity to move forward with somebody, and Pluto's going to go into your whole sign 5th. So lots of self-expression, creativity, and lots of opportunities for children with Jupiter and Uranus trine your moon. You know, and if you're not sure, it's time to have that conversation, because Saturn in the 5th house is saying you have to speak what's on your feelings. But Uranus trine your moon is gonna help you kind of come out with it. It's just about being vulnerable and being able to speak vulnerably about how you're feeling. Let me know what happens, especially during that retrograde. Like, circle back around in December, January, because it'll be interesting to see what happens, because you are in a lunar year once you have your birthday. So looks like if you're launching businesses and things, really strong in the spring for you. Hopefully that is helpful for you, Kelsey. Tiffany, thank you for your patience. Let me plug you in. And I need to know your question too. 9/11/87. And that was 12:05 p.m. in Boston. There we go. Anything coming for love? Guy I was dating in January, March didn't work out. He left. I still have feelings for someone I met in July. I'm unsure if I could see myself with him long term. Well, the good news is you got that Mars retrograde in your 7th, so you can go back and forth. You can go back and forth with 2 people if you want, and people are going to come back, as I've said for other people, because Mars rules your 5th Aries. So love-wise, we want to see some stuff going on with your Venus, and well, Mercury is going to go retrograde in conjunction with your Venus. Close. So I would say you are in a 12th house annual perfection year, clearing people out. Mercury comes retrograde in conjunction with your Venus. See what pops up September 24th. Through October 3rd, you might hear from somebody from the past. You might meet somebody at work too, or through work or out in a public space. And Mercury will be in a square to Mars. So it's like you're playing the waiting game to hear back from other people. Then you've got Venus coming into Libra. Technically, it's in your 12th. And somebody else could also appear. A third party is what I'm kind of predicting, or another person. October 20th on, maybe 20th through the 27th of October. Because you're in a 12th house annual perfection year, once you're past your birthday, then you're going to be in a 1st house year, which is ruled by Mars, and all those planets are going to be trine Mars. So you're going to know right around mid-October whether or not you're going to let the other person go, or if you're going to move on to somebody else. I'm liking also like Venus and the Sun in opposition to Jupiter, because that makes me feel like somebody might pop in very suddenly. Mars is going to come into close proximity with your Chiron. So those of you guys born in 1987, especially Scorpio risings, you know, it's about communicating and expressing any fears or apprehension that you have about being in love, about dating, about children. If you have issues feeling like heard or communicating with a partner and like hashing out anything from the past, that's going to come up. And then you've got Jupiter on your north node the whole time. So I'm really curious about the Taurus eclipse here, right around November 8th. Make a note of that date. Because even though it's not technically in your 7th house, it is whole sign. So to me, it seems like the Mars retrograde is going to be a process from the end of October through the new year of like sorting and sifting, letting the past go, learning not to be kind of triggered by partners. You got Saturn and Uranus in your 1st house, so it's like learning not to be reactionary if other people are kind of rubbing you the wrong way. But I think it's actually going to be somebody who's coming on quite strong, telling you that, you know, possibly they want a future, that they're in love with you, they want to do something really significant, and you're going to be like, wait a second, this is weird. Like, can I trust this person? Because Mars is going to be opposed your personal planets in the 1st, square the 10th, I would exercise a bit of caution in October and also the end of November in relationships. And I also would say once Mars goes direct at 8 degrees in the new year, it will trine Saturn. So once it's done with its retrograde, at the end of January, it's going to oppose your personal planets one more time. That'll be mid-February, and it will trine Saturn briefly from the 27th on, so the 27th of February on. And to me, it looks like it's going to stabilize. Then you've got the North Node conjuncture Jupiter. I mean, like, you got an eclipse conjuncture Jupiter. I mean, it's very clear to me there's a sense of falling in love with somebody, and it really unfolds April and May of 2023. But with the Sun and Jupiter conjunct, and it's your Jupiter return with the North Node, are you thinking about wanting to be in a relationship and having kids? Is that coming up for you at all? Because that eclipse makes me feel like it could be a person, it moves very quickly, and then you guys start talking about whether or not you're, you know, possibly talking about having a kid or getting married. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but it's kind of what it looks like with all the planets going into your 7th house trining. You've also got Saturn coming into conjunction with your IC, so it's about planning, getting into a relationship, feeling stable, feeling solid in where you're living, and really kind of sorting some of that stuff out. People will come back with Mars retrograde. So if you're really asking like, okay, is somebody going to come back? People will come back. But the question is just because they come back, is it a solid match, right? Watch out for people who are a little immature. Mars rules your 5th. If they just want to date, they want to play games, they just want to hook up, that's not really what this chart is looking for. To me, it looks like you're looking for more stability. And I'm actually really liking Saturn on your Juno with Mars trine. I think you're going to have people who are going to come in that are going to be like, I'm not looking to mess around. And you'll be like, oh. Might take you by surprise, you know? And just having Jupiter also 7 houses away from your Sun, it's going to be somebody who's more domestic. They're focusing on home stuff where you're like, my career. They're going to be like, my house. I want family. Like, I want to live with somebody. You're going to be like, what? And it's going to kind of take you by surprise. But I think once Jupiter comes back into a conjunction with your North Node, it looks like you're talking about building more of like a domestic home zone with somebody January really through the spring of next year. So yes, whoever didn't work out, don't worry about it. You're going to hit by those eclipses, especially in like March, April, May. If something fell out, it's setting you up for somebody new to come in. And right after your birthday, you move into a Mars year. So it's a fresh start for you. It's all about what direction and drive and passion you have. When it comes to your career, but also you're going to start seeing a different side of people who are going to be a little bit more passionate and a little bit pushier in relationships. You'll have to circle back and let us know, but it's like you might be going back and forth with 2 people later this year. And if people from the past come back, you have to ask yourself, are they just telling you what you want to hear? You know what I'm saying? Hopefully that's helpful for you, Tiffany. Circle back around. People come back and they're like, everything happened, but sometimes it takes couple weeks, couple months to see some of that stuff pan out, you know? All right, guys. Well, it's been fun. I think we got everybody. It looks like we did. I will be putting out a video tomorrow. We're going to talk all about the transits for September of 2022. I'm going to touch on the most important themes. If you guys want to know more about the Mercury or the Mars retrogrades that are going to be taking place, I've got videos that I put out for that as well, so you can get a little sneak preview for that. Next week on Saturday at 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 10 Eastern, we're going to be doing live tarot. So you can tune in for that if you want to get a tarot reading. If you want to share this, if you want to give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, you want to come back, we'd love to hear from you. Big thanks to everybody who's donated to get a reading, and everybody who has been supporting the channel. Just want to say thank you. Without you guys, this wouldn't be possible. I didn't go. Who are we missing? I had a feeling. I was like, are we missing someone? MK. Madison, is that you? Let's see. Are you missing someone? No, I got you. Madison for Corey. Thank you. I was like, I had a feeling I was missing someone. Okay, we'll get you. I don't want to leave you hanging. There we go. Madison. Thank you for saying something. Otherwise, I would have signed off. Okay, so this is for Corey. April 16th, 1993. Thank you for waiting. For my boyfriend, his family's been draining him emotionally as well as taking up all of his time and energy for years. Is there an end in sight? Will his family ever stop leaning on him? I'm very worried about him. Okay, well, we've got Neptune in the 7th. That's you. Family is going to be more so Jupiter. He's got Jupiter in opposition to Mercury. So yeah, family asks for him a lot to like solve things, and he's got Jupiter in his first. To be honest with you, based off his transits, and I'm not saying this because you're his girlfriend, but it's like there's a little bit of you saying like, hi, you can't do everything for everybody. Like, I need you too, you know? Jupiter opposed Jupiter. And he's feeling a little bit kind of stretched between both. Him used to being kind of the peacemaker for his family, but also trying to show up more for a relationship partner. Jupiter going retrograde, coming back into Pisces is actually really good because it's going to give more time for him with a partner. Here's the deal. Whole sign, the North Node is very close to his 4th house, and it's like people are calling him or they ask him to come over or help with things or help them move or handling documents or paperwork or other things. It's part of his karma. And when he has a really strong Jupiter transit, down the road, he is going to be finding that he's going to take more space from his family because he's going to be focusing more on his relationships. That'll take a little bit of time. I think Saturn coming in conjunction with his moon is he's going to limit his connection either with his mother or more so with like creating time for female relatives, and that's going to be in March of next year. But really when Saturn fully goes into his 7th house, he's committing more to romantic relationships, and that's going to be in spring of 24. And then when Saturn comes into Aries and it opposes his Jupiter, he's going to have a partner being like, you, now the focus is on me, probably like when he's engaged or married, possibly, if not sooner. 2026 is like more so the hard timeline where a partner's like, it's them or me, like I need you more. You know, that's when that's going to be happening. But Jupiter opposed Jupiter means he's going to be trying this year and into the new year to balance both. He's going to be trying to balance his relationship and also his relationship with his family. And he's getting a lot of support with Jupiter in the 7th house from a relationship. But also it can be somebody being like, you know, hey, do you want to talk to a counselor? So you're not feeling like you have to take on the burdens for everybody 24/7, if that makes any sense. His mom's been having health issues. Yeah, Saturn's going to come in conjunction with his moon in the 6th house, and that's going to be in the new year, and likely that will materialize his mom having some even more significant health issues. I don't like saying that, but that's what's kind of coming up, especially next spring. And then when Saturn is off of his moon, maybe he'll feel like, okay, she's doing better, but that could take a year before he's like, okay, I'm taking a step back. Also right now, Pluto's in a square to his sun, so it's not just his mom, it's issues with love life interfering, also feeling like he can't balance everything. So there's some power struggles going on, or it can be with his father as well. But a lot of this is his karma, Saturn in the 6th, you know, being of service to other people. And until he gets like Saturn up to his descendant and relationships get more solid, it's going to take about 2 years where things are going to kind of scale back a little bit. Also, Saturn in his 6th right now is in a square to Pluto. So this is about digestional issues, scheduling issues, overworking himself, having way too much on his plate mentally. And that's like a really big theme with Uranus coming into an opposition with Pluto square Saturn. I mean, you really want to just like let him know, like, he has to really take care of his health this year. He can't be overworking. He can't be not eating. He has to be working out. Like, he has to manage stress. Yeah. And with Pluto square his sun, it's about him hashing things out with his dad. So he's not the only one responsible for taking care of his mom. And he's got Saturn in the 6th square Pluto in his 3rd. So it means like he's going to have issues and challenges with a sibling. And his sibling's going to be like, I can't do it all by myself, or I can't handle everything, or I don't have the time. Sucks that it kind of falls on him. I would encourage him to look into getting a counselor. I know that sounds weird, but I think if he can get a counselor and somebody who can help. 7th house can also be assistance. So I'm wondering, are there, is it possible for him to get public assistance? Call 211, see if he's able to get, you know, support from the state or other people that can be helping get them to like medical appointments, getting them assistance, getting them therapy, like things like that. So it's not just all on him, because Jupiter can bring that in, or it can be through his partner saying, I'm going to set you up with a therapist, or I'm going to connect you to a nonprofit or somebody who can help you so you're not taking it all on. But a lot of this is Mercury square Pluto. Make sure that he's breathing, be talking to him about breath work and exercising to help him with some of the anxiety, because that'll really help him work through it. And also like just taking his time and not trying to fit too much into his schedule, because this to me seems like he's trying to fit too much into his schedule and he's like stressed out, and he's more accident prone, or he's more prone to get sick if he's mentally running himself into the ground. Over time, yes, things will get better, but just know when Saturn conjuncts his moon next March, April, that is going to be mom having, you know, health stuff. And she may have female friends that pop in that are willing to help. So there might be like, you know, female friends or female relatives that can help. But until Saturn's off his moon, he's going to be taking care of his mom and helping his mom a lot until the beginning of 2024. From then on, then it's going to be more about partnerships and relationships. So you might have to say to him, like, you know, in a year's time, you guys are in a relationship and more seriously committed, I need you too, right? But this is going to unfold over a longer period of time. Like I said, when Saturn comes into an opposition with his Jupiter, and a partner's like, you can't take care of our family and your family at the same time. So eventually that is going to give, and he's going to realize that there needs to be some bigger changes that are happening because he's made commitments in another relationship. Teach him the box method for breath is something that I would really recommend, so he can better kind of deal with anxiety. And with his sun, square Mars, square Neptune, Uranus, I mean, Dad is not the most reliable, and he gets really stressed out quite easily. And he, you know, he's always used to dealing with crisis with his sun in the 8th house. So it's important to kind of teach him to calm his nerves and be working on better supporting his nervous system. Okay. But you this year, as Jupiter in the 7th in opposition to Jupiter, can be like, let's find other people that can help you, so you're not doing this all by yourself. That's how I would use this transit right now. You can be bringing him lots of support and be showing him other ways of being able to bring people in that can help. Hopefully that's helpful. Sending you guys lots of good vibes. I know that's difficult. And thank you for being patient. I'm glad we didn't miss you. Okay, guys, I will be back tomorrow. We got September astrology. Horoscopes are coming later this week, and I'll be back next Saturday for live tarot readings. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Have a happy rest of your weekend and Saturday night. Take care.